Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. Christoph Stückeberger, director and founder of globalethics.net. I'd like to make one link about youth extremism and corruption. In our network, we have a lot of young people, students, who are on the better side on the life, in the sense that they reached already university. But still, one key suffering they have is they want to overcome corruption, and they suffer from the lack of governance and so on. Just this morning, I got an email from a young professor, PhD in the US, went back to Kinshasa. He's on hunger strike since yesterday, because not paid since 6 months, because the government had paid 120 fake, non-existing salaries instead of paying the salaries for those who are teaching. So these are young people. You remember in January, I think 40 young people were killed in Kinshasa for youth demonstrations. So it's another kind of violence, which is not the violence of the Islamophobia or Islamic extremists, if you want. It's the violence of those who can no more support this kind of injustice in corruption. So how can we make this link? And I think, Hazami, you mentioned it very well. How can also from the UN side you contribute to that? We would be willing also from globalethics.net to contribute to that. And we work a lot on anti-corruption and the youth who are willing to do something in that. If you can comment on that.
Thank you. We also heard today that there's a need to show more evidence. If there's a silent majority of these young people who are a majority who actually choose not to, what are they actually doing constructively in their communities across dividing lines to create peace dividends in their communities? What are they actually doing? And there has been an effort on that. Several of agencies have come together. So it's not just Search for Common Ground doing it, but working in collaboration and partnership with Save the Children Norway, World Vision International, youth organizations coming together, funded by NURAD, to actually help shape the evidence base on this. So I'm also going to ask my colleague Aneta to briefly talk a little bit about what's the evidence that you're finding at a preliminary level. And there's a mic.
Thank you. So I want to share with you a few findings on an evaluation on children and youth in peace building in so far 3 countries, Nepal, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Colombia. And in this evaluation, children and youth have been actively and directly participating in the process. So what we so far have found is that children and youth are contributing to peace in their families, schools, and communities. They are reducing domestic violence and gender-based violence, which is especially important for the girls. They are reducing discrimination of castes and stopping child marriages. They have contributed to reconciliation. For example, when conflict-affected children, including so-called child soldiers, have been reintegrated to school, and when youth have received opportunities and regained confidence. And also, when they include their peers from these groups into their peace-building activities. In Nepal, they say, children and youth who have been involved in peace-building training are not involved in fights or conflicts because they have more knowledge about peace-building. And they have contributed to increased safety by breaking the so-called invisible borders in areas dominated by violent groups. So, in general, social inclusion and coexistence in everyday life have improved in these areas. And these achievements build on personal growth and changes due to their participation in peace-building activities. They have developed communication and social skills. They have improved their leadership skills, and they say that this enables them to fight against violence and discrimination. They have improved teamwork capacities, They are more patient, they listen to and learn from each other, and they are oriented towards problem solving, acknowledge failures, and find solutions to the problems. They recognize that they can influence their peers and say, we must be an example to others. And also, they find new ways of managing conflicts. Children are getting interested in peace and want to learn more, also about the latest peace process in the country. And in Colombia, they start believing that peace is possible. Cultural expression is crucial for them, such as mural paintings, music, dance, and art. I will end with a quote from a youth in Nepal. This evaluation has been implemented by means of participatory tools. So they say, the tools we have used in this evaluation are amazing. When using them with political leaders, they have realized what changes children and youth are making. Thank you.
That's an effort that is led by Save the Children Norway, Search for Common Ground, World Vision International, and a number of youth-led organizations in these countries, funded by NURAD. And we need to build on this. But what you heard there, not the voice of young people as victims. What you heard was the constructive work that actually they are doing against all odds, against amazing challenges, but they're doing constructively. And that's not unique to Nepal, Democratic Republic of the Congo, or Colombia. It is a common narrative we hear across. And it's not also here in developing countries or conflict-affected countries. We also hear it here in Norway. We have an amazing youth leader here, Ufuk, who is also pioneering these efforts against all odds, against dividing lines, coming together, bringing young people together to create new narratives, alternate narratives, and amplifying that narrative. So these are not minority voices, these are majorities. Our collective responsibility then is to then amplify those, not just focus on the few troublemakers, because then what we do is enabling the troublemakers to give more oxygen to their narrative. So, do you want to comment on this? Please.
Sure.
Please.
I'd like to pick up on something which was said here earlier, which I think is extremely important, to take youth seriously. And one of the things I think as a politician, when you hear foreign policy, is one of the things which is really bringing, I mean, there are different grievances, but foreign policy is one of them, what are our countries doing in different parts of the world? And really engaging youth in foreign policy discussions, I think is just taking youth seriously. It's not easy, but it's not easy to be a decision maker and to tell youth that, okay, there are different dilemmas here on the table, and to take the youth seriously and say, what would you have done in that situation, and to really bring it out on the table, to explain, the different dilemmas that are there for a decision-making body or a person, to actually show how difficult it can be, but to be honest and say that it is difficult and challenging. So engaging, and I know that there are groups which I'm very impressed with, who have really engaged and invited us in to engage in foreign policy issues. Another thing which I'd like to highlight, which I'm really impressed with, and I wish they had been here as well, is people using cartoons and cartoons in creating role models, in creating who are the superheroes of today, of the youth. Let it not be the people who slaughter people or who kidnap people in Iraq or Syria. Let it be heroes that we can believe in, positive role models. And there are some fantastic people out there who are really doing this kind of work, and role models who can show the work that can be done on anti-corruption, on injustice, who can really show for us what's out there. And then again, I think there are a number of voices in this room and elsewhere who are really doing great stuff. So if there are journalists in this room, I would say focus on them, except don't focus only on sort of the negative stories, but focus on the positive stories. That's all our responsibility, I suppose, in bringing out those positive voices, because there are many of them. We just don't hear of them that often.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my colleagues here to share any final thoughts before we go towards closing this session. I'll start with you.
Just to complement, I think at the global level, there is a deficiency of moral and ethical leadership. The global political system is broken. In many cases, communities, people, including youth, are paying the price of foreign policy mistakes. Therefore, youth should develop its own voice, not being a part of the existing political mechanisms, but as a new transformative voice. This is very important. And also, I believe that the early child peace building training or programs are very important. So we should not start this from a later stage, but from the very, very beginning. This is very important, I think.
Thank you. Gina?
Well, I would just like to pick up on what State Secretary said about constructing alternative narratives and how important that is. And I would just put a focus on the Peace It Forward campaign that the Nobel Peace Prize Forum is launching, and I hope that everyone out there will join it. It's a small way to get involved, but I think it goes towards creating those kind of alternative narratives that we were talking about.
Hazami?
I definitely think that a lot of the conversations that happened here are very relevant and need to be picked up on more. I just wanted to address the issue on the ethics that the gentleman brought up earlier, and we had a chance of speaking yesterday. But I think also, I mean, the My World survey was done by the United Nations, and around 7 million votes globally came in. 5 million of them were from young people, and I noted this to you yesterday. But of the highest ranking, I mean, the survey ultimately asked people around the world, what is the world that you envision in 2015? And governance and accountability was ranked among the top 5 priorities that young people found, and ranked as their own priorities for development in areas that they wanted improvement on. So I think these types of data sets that do showcase what young people are looking for and what accountability and mechanisms they would like to be able to engage in need to be emphasized. I'll leave it on just one point, and this is food for thought, and the Envoy constantly uses these two shocking statistics that actually put things into perspective also. If you are a child or a young person based in the Middle East and North Africa, your passport does not have much power when it comes to traveling between countries. If you are a member of ISIS or ISIL, you actually have more autonomy of travel than you do being a law-abiding citizen. The second thing that also that should be noted is that the salaries and the financial benefits of joining ISIS are often 3 times that of a salary of a young person working and living in the Middle East. So again, keep those 2 things in mind when we're just looking at ideology, because ideology is one component, but there are also other factors that do impact that. So I'll keep you with those 2.
Thank you. Laila?
I'll just end with a couple of sentences, and that is, instead of speaking about what we are against, I think we should be turning the conversation into what we are for, what are we working towards, making it a positive, sort of, what are we part of? And I know this sounds very sort of wishy-washy maybe, but it's like sort of like, what are we fighting for? What do we believe in? And all of us, and the youth, you know, what do we wake up for, and what do we want our youth to be fighting for? What do we all want to be fighting for? And that again, turning it into something positive and something we'd like to believe in. And that's the battle, I think, for all of us, and sort of like changing it into a positive battle. Yeah.
Thank you. And for those who are interested, there is also the interagency, based on evidence, have developed a set of guiding principles for young people's participation in peace building. It's about not the victim role, but the positive contributions, and a set of 9 guiding principles. There's much more detail on the website. You can take a look at them and use it for your designing of your programs and to become more accountable to the populations we serve.